Now we're going to go to the newspapers. Dipti is here. I suspect once again, just one subject really that the papers are talking about, Dipti.
That's right. Hurricane Trump, if you look at the front page of the right-leaning paper Le Figaro, they call it a hurricane. The pollsters and political pundits got it so badly wrong, and Hurricane Trump swept everything in its path. I quote, "It swept the comfort of intellectual elites and the certainty of the business world and the arrogance of the media. It's a staggering landslide, one in which our coasts could not have been spared from the shockwaves." In the West, Le Figaro writes, "People are angry, and the media and the political classes chose not to see it. Now, after Trump's victory, that is no longer possible."
And we're seeing similar messages of shock and disbelief in other French newspapers as well, aren't we?
Well, let's look at Les Echos, the French financial paper, which calls Trump's victory a leap into the unknown, le saut dans l'inconnu, in particular because we know so little about his foreign policy programs, about his economic ideas and his vision for the country. We're seeing the same vernacular used by La Croix, the Catholic paper, which uses a one-word headline, l'inconnu, again, uncertainty, unknown, that the U.S. and I guess the world finds itself now after that shock victory from Trump. La Croix actually takes a more balanced view of things, saying, warning against what it calls a, quote, excess of worry. La Croix says, okay, we must continue to fight for our beliefs, for our convictions, to remind ourselves and the American people of these beliefs. What brings us together is worth more than that which divides us. I quote, La Croix says, "It's better to build bridges than walls." So a very typically humanistic view from La Croix. And just the third headline from L'Humanité, the communist paper, which says, "Trump, the imposter, takes advantage of the anger of the American people. His victory for L'Humanité is a spectacular failure of the myth of a happy globalization."
Dipti, you're going to tell us about something that I actually heard about before I went to bed last night. It's Libération. I mean, they don't mince their words, do you? It's a left-leaning paper. They never mince their words, but they've gone the whole hog today, haven't they?
I guess they have. If you look at this, it's a great front page that says, very simply, American Psycho. That's a shadowy picture of Trump in the background. All you see is his hair and his fingers there, obviously borrowing the title from Bret Easton Ellis's book about a psychopathic killer. Now, Libé is clearly in shock, and it evokes what it calls a nightmare that's taken shape, a dread that cannot be shaken off. A brutal and unpredictable candidate, a demagogue, is going to have the supreme power in the largest democracy in the world. So you really get a sense that even Libé doesn't believe that he managed to win, despite the scandals, despite the populist discourse, despite the alleged allegations of sexual assault. Now, in its editorial, Libé says the Democrats, much like the left in the rest of the world, failed to respond to two key concerns. Firstly, the struggles of the lower middle classes and the working classes, but also this growing identity crisis. Trump's spearhead, I quote, is white America.
Okay, well, let's look at a right-wing paper now. We're going to look at L'Opinion for you, in fact, looking at whose turn it's going to be next in this wave of populism that we've been seeing this year.
Well, a wave that, of course, began with the Brexit vote in June. L'Opinion says there's no doubt about it. There are other surprises in store. The right-wing paper actually evokes what it calls the Uberization of democracy, a great term, I guess, an upheaval that's shaking the foundations of our system, of the status quo, if you like. And L'Opinion says this is going to affect, first of all, the political parties, and in particular, the old machines, the old political machines that are overused and discredited. This is not just one or two examples of populism. This is a declaration of anger towards the political establishment, towards the effects of globalization. The question for L'Opinion now is 6 months from now in France, could France also end up with a shock president? And you see this cartoon here from L'Opinion, that's Nicolas Sarkozy, behind him Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the radical left leader, all styled with Trump's signature blonde hair, looking at Alain Juppé, who's bald, in front of them, saying it's going to be much harder for him. Alain Juppé, of course, is one of the frontrunners who could become the French right's presidential candidate.
Le Parisien is also looking at how the Trump election could really affect France next year.
That's right. Le Parisien wonders on its front page what changes for us, meaning France, That's the headline there with Trump in the background. Le Parisien is really wondering just how far the shockwaves from this Trump populism is going to go. Could it affect the presidential election in France next year? The paper reminds readers that Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader, was one of the first to congratulate Trump after his victory on Wednesday. Indeed, his election could be a great launching pad for the far-right in 2017. That's what Le Parisien says, and it would electrify the battle between Nicolas Sarkozy and Alain Juppé. After all, Le Parisien says, all the scandals in the world did not prevent Trump from winning.
And finally from Dipti, we're going to look at an article from Slate. Now, this has some words really of courage for those in France who might be rather in despair after the American election.
Well, you have to look on the positive side, right? This article is really soup for the soul, Stuart. It's a glass half full type of vision of the election result, which many Democrat supporters might need right now. In this article entitled, "We Can Survive Donald Trump," the Slate writer says, well, at least Trump's election shows us that anything's possible. This, after all, is a guy from The Apprentice, who is now the 45th president of the USA. The other positive note, well, at least we know that the Third World War will be delayed. Of course, Trump and Putin have quite a close relationship.
Yeah, we can but hope so. At least Dipti has a smile on her face. Dipti Coloron with the French papers for you.